Big frickin' day, folks. I launched my whole soundbar review initiative with the Sonos Arc. Oh my, he's beautiful. Since then, I have reviewed many soundbars, but today I'm bringing it home and reviewing the Sonos Arc successor, the 2024 $1,000 Sonos Arc Ultra. I was low-key pining for a completely revamped name, but if you can't think of one, Ultra is extremely available. It gets around. I've also got two new 2024 $800 Sub 4s, a 4-year follow-up to the 2020 Sub Gen 3, which debuted alongside the original Arc. In this review, I'll be staying in the Sonos ecosystem, discussing how the Arc Ultra varies from the OG Arc, design, feature, and sound-wise, how the Sub 4 differs from the Sub Gen 3, again, design, feature, and sound-wise, and how the legal Arc Ultra Peak system, so Arc Ultra 2 Era 300s and 2 Sub 4s, fares against, up until recently, the Peak Arc legal system, so Arc 2 Era 300s and 2 pre-Sub 4s. I'll admit this video is probably most relevant for the Sonosaurs or Philo-Sisonians, those that hold the belief that Sonos, even when in the deepest of black holes, still outshines the other guys. So your choice is buy, upgrade, or don't. The merely Sonos curious, you might still experience some mild titillation. This channel will get to comparisons with other non-Sonos bars and systems after this video. Design and build, the Arc Ultra. If you just grab the Ultra with your eyes closed, the shape, density, and texture is 100% familiar. With a quick glance, you'll see the familiar Arc shape, the thousands of holes, even on those concave sides, which certainly gives it an Arc spirit in design. But upon closer inspection, it's clear the Ultra is its own thing, far from an Arc duplicate. Let's start with size and weight. The Arc Ultra, as you would expect, is sleeker. It's not dramatically but noticeably wider than the Arc, but otherwise it's shorter, less deep, and lighter. Shorter is better for TV visibility, but I know not everyone is excited about squattier housing and its sound implications. With the Arc Ultra, the grille wraps nearly all around the bar. With the Arc, it covers approximately half. The Arc Ultra back panel is more prominent, being made nearly as tall as the bar and houses all the controls, where the controls were on the main body on the OG Arc. The two bars have the same little rubber skis for feet, but those little rubber skis are much closer together on the Ultra, as the bar is not given that flat supporting panel all across the bottom. If you're looking to mount, the old Arc mount will technically work. The holes line up, but it's not optimal as it may be visible from certain angles. So if aesthetics are a high priority, buy the slightly miniaturized Ultra mount to keep things tidy. Not going to talk about the Era 300 except in the sound quality section. If you want to know my thoughts, I made a whole bucket of videos about them last year. Please watch those and subscribe as many times as you can. I will confirm that when paired with the Arc or Arc Ultra, they still just play from the sides and top, not the front. The mystery continues. Okay, the Sub 4. Many fewer changes than with the Ultra. The Gen 4 and 3 look nearly identical, other than the Sub 4's matte finish, which shouldn't be trivialized. I think it looks better, but opinions are going to vary on this one. The feet arrangement, definitely a shuffle there. More traditional on the Sub 4. About the weight, the Sonos site says that the Sub 4 is 10 pounds lighter than the Sub Gen 3. When I picked up both, I was not seeing a huge weight difference. By my measurements, the weight of the Sub Gen 3 was 28.8 pounds and the Sub 4, 25.4 pounds. If you're worried about a 10-pound reduction, it's really closer to 3.5. My absolute weight measurements could be shifted, could be a little off, but there's no way there's a 10-pound difference between these two subs. Driver array. I used to think Sonos had a bit of modesty with the channel count. For instance, the Arc looked and smelled and tasted and sounded like a 5.0.2 channel bar, and that's what Sonos claimed it as. The latest iteration, Sonos is letting its freak flag fly and pronouncing the Ultra as a 9.1.4 channel bar all by itself. To be fair, the Arc Ultra under the hood is a completely different animal than the Arc, with more drivers and a re-ratioing of sound makers that make low tones and high tones. The original Arc had 11 drivers, 8 mid-range woofers, and 3 tweeters. The Arc Ultra added 3 drivers. They slashed 2 mid-range woofers, added 4 tweeters, and integrated Sonos's new toy, stemming from the purchase of the very hyped Might sound company, a sound motion woofer, which is touted as a breakthrough in making low tones in little spaces. Big guy with little shorts. However that goes. In either case, we'll certainly be assessing the goods in the sound quality section. Some more interesting details. The Arc had more woofers in total, but the Ultra has 2 more woofers in front, giving the traditional left, center, right front channels all 2 woofers, where the Arc gave the left and right channel just a single woofer. The Ultra is packing more in the front. With the Arc, the side and upward firing noisemakers were all woofers. With the Arc Ultra, they're all tweeters, with the exception of the sound motion woofer, which is not directional. All these details positioning the Ultra to have significantly different sound properties. As I stated in my last video, a driver arrangement that looks like it wants to get spacey. The Sub 4 and Sub Gen 3, there was some talk of a different woofer size, but whatever it says on the internet, these dual opposing woofers are the same dang size to the nanometer. Both are advertised as supporting 25 Hz. Features. So the new one does have more features than the old one. Typical. Bluetooth may be a big one for you, in particular if you have an Android phone. The Ultra has a more stepped and AI-driven dialogue enhancer with 4 states, off, low, mid, and high, as opposed to the Arc's dialogue mode, on-off. Sonos could have improved the user experience by putting the adjuster on the now playing screen, as opposed to making people go to settings. Dialogue clarity varies considerably by content, even within content, and the idea that users that like this feature will not want to vary the level with some regularity is silly. If the user experience team says I'm wrong, keep digging that hole. Just change it. I won't even gloat. TruePlay for Android, I oversold this in my last video. As we have had for over a year, premiering with the Era speakers, you have a humble and a traditional option termed quick tuning and advanced tuning, respectively. Android folks are stuck with the quick stupid one that uses on-bar mics as opposed to the phone mic. The phone having the distinct advantage that it can move around and inform a more specified room correction. Well, technically, I guess you can move the bar around, but then I suppose the sound moves around too, which... Don't let them know you're going to try it. Shared features, a refresh, just the one eARC port, no HDMI inputs. If you don't have an eARC TV by now that will enable you to play lossless audio, you are making life hard on yourself. Or maybe you just don't care about this relationship. AirPlay 2 sticks around. You got voice control with a built-in mic. The Arc has all 3 voice assistants, so Sonos Voice Control, Alexa, and Google Assistant. At some point in the last 4 years, Sonos stabbed Google Assistant in the back or the other way around. I'm sure both had it coming, so no Google Assistant on the Ultra. It's the kids that suffer. Both systems enjoy the whole network music play and compatibility with a trillion services and world-class pairing and grouping abilities, in theory. Both supports the full Dolby suite, LPCM and lossy DTS. They continue to believe the licensing of full DTS is not worth it. Yes, the DTS scorned are quite loud, but from a pure business perspective, they might have a perfectly valid reason not to care, because there's probably simply not enough people who share your big, loud, ugly cry feelings. Probably worth confirming, apart from the AI dialogue enhancer, the sound adjusters are the same. Volume, which can be controlled by your TV remote, EQ, bass and treble, height, volume level, rear speaker level, which you can adjust independently for streaming music and TV. For music, you can choose to use your rear speakers as full playback or ambient. Sonos doesn't do 5 to 12 different sound modes like competitors for better or worse. When you've crafted the perfect sound mode, any others would be superfluous. The Sub 4 doesn't have any customer-facing features per se. You can adjust their volume, disable them, or neuter them by going into night mode. The Sub 4 does have one undeniable advantage over the 3, however: longevity. At some point, Sonos will have a fancy new thing that will work with the Sub 4, but will not work with the Sub Gen 3, 2, or 1. But the fact that I can still get down with the Gen 1 is promising for the longevity of the Gen 3. And perhaps if you're eagle-eared, you can hear the advertised improved syncing abilities enabled by the modernized radios, chips, and increased memory. Bar controls. The Ultra has an era-style capacitive volume slider as opposed to the tapper capacitive left-right buttons. I'm team slider. With the Ultra, the audio tracks are skipped by pressing the arrows as opposed to swiping left and right on the Arc OG. Just like the Era speakers, the Ultra has a hard mic cut. This does cut off the sound assistance and room correction mics. Both bars do have a dedicated button to toggle whether you want the voice assistant active. I'm going to talk about Arc Ultra pairing options. Pairing is when the components are married into a single system and play different parts of the whole sound, like front or rear, left or right. Grouping is like multi-room. You can group as many speakers as you want. There aren't any restrictions, as long as they're on the same network. So I'm going to talk about pairing with the Arc Ultra. So I tried the Play ones, as a commenter said it works. They did not show up as options. And yes, they were on the network. I'm not guaranteeing they don't work. They didn't work for me, but don't be surprised if they don't work for you. And don't confuse the Play one and the Sonos one. The Sonos one came later, and the Sonos one can be paired to the Arc Ultra. So here's the compatible and incompatible list. The Sub 4 will not talk to the Play Bar or Play Bass and snubs the exact same speakers as the Ultra. You know, if you were thinking of making a nice little 2.1 audio system. The app and network, how did it do? When the network is acting up, which is not uncommon, making me spend 3 hours unpairing and pairing components, troubleshooting, restarting routers, resetting products, when whatever I'm attempting should take 5 minutes? Well, I would never burn my house down to rapidly cleanse myself of Sonos products, but I can fantasize about it. I dealt with some of that in this review. Sometimes just one speaker on the network can throw everything off. If you buy the Ultra, maybe it's time to lose the 11-year-old speakers. There's a high probability they're going to drag you down. The Ultra performed better than anything else, but when removing surrounds and adding older bass units, it was common for me to have to power cycle the Ultra and restart the app to get the app to identify all the components. Annoying, not infuriating. The music streaming continues to be extremely temperamental. I may casually select a song and it starts up fine. At another time, it may go into laggy, skippy, playus interruptus mode. In one attempted listening session, the Arc wouldn't play any streaming music from any service. an endless stack of can't connect messages. 20 minutes of trying for nothing, and sadly, I thought, par for the course, maybe I'll have better luck next time. Device-hosted content like AirPlay and Bluetooth played reliably, but you shouldn't be forced to lean on that. Also worked well, maybe cleaner pipes, and I dig that they got rid of the obnoxious, unpleasant, distorted vroomp, I hear you tone like you got on the Arc. Content loaded and started playing at a speed you would expect. Controlling the bars when the bars were doing their home theater thing, you know, playing audio fed via HDMI, not the internet, well, worked as intended, which, does Sonos deserve a clap for that? Maybe. If you have just a few products and not hundreds of devices clogging up your router, even if it's a very fancy router, your experience almost certainly won't be as hellish as mine, but some of you are gonna get heated. The app and network is still in a transitional phase. I think the app got uglier and I wouldn't call it more useful, unfortunately. Sonos has brought back over 80% of the old features, including alarms and sleep timers. The new app should be completely restored in the coming weeks. While the app direction has been encouraging, a less than pristine controller does hang a shadow over the new shiny hardware. One day this will all be yours. Sound quality. Let's talk just the Arc Ultra and Arc Regular all by themselves. Yes, so if you just set the two bars at the same volume, the Ultra is going to sound more beastly. It goes by its name, not its looks. The most obvious change is the punch, shape, and authority in the low end. Both systems peak around 65 Hz, but the Ultra's 65 Hz is way more convincing. The Sound Motion woofer does the work. It's not a gimmick. The frequency curve with the original Arc is fairly flat all the way through the bass frequencies. This is not true with the Ultra. The bass frequencies jut out like a mountain range, at least when zoomed in. For the most part, the enhanced bass capabilities acted as an intensifier, bringing more aggression and emphasis to critical events, whether it be colliding objects on screen or bruising, gritty frequency drop sound effects. I sensed the motion effects were amplified by intensifying the depth and impact of the crescendos as objects pass. Whether it be a vehicle, plane, missile, Elon, Casey rocket, the Arc Ultra plays it meaner, and it pays off over and over again. The mids and highs were not as obviously altered as the bass. However, I sensed the Ultra as having a more modern, open, crunchy sound. There are more tweeters, but that maybe didn't make as big a difference as the fact that tweeters were facing in more directions. The whole 9.1.4 thing is very silly, but the tweeters on the side and top, I sensed, did help to separate the sound. When I walked by the bar, I could more easily differentiate what was coming from the front, sides, and top than with the Arc. The spatial distribution of the tweeters, I don't want to say revolutionized Atmos performance, but I feel comfortable saying it made directional and height effects perhaps 25 to 30% more convincing, which is a big deal. The soundstage was broadened with the Ultra, but I definitely wasn't blown away. You're still dealing with a soundbar. I'd also say I picked up on a bit more high-end detail, harmonics, and character up top. I've been watching the same clips for years, and there were a few times I heard a sound effect in a new way, caught an extra edge that I might not have noticed before. Not that this bar has exceptional top-level clarity, but it has the goods, I think, to bring out some detail on the high end you'd likely miss with the Arc. As mentioned, I didn't pick up a huge difference in the mids. I think Sonos did a good job of incorporating intensifiers, those stimulants in the lows and highs, without hollowing out the sound. The 6 woofers up front, which are part of the sound's core, keep the bar grounded, keeps it from coming off as cold, metallic, or generically modern. This grounding really assisted in music. I sensed the more modern tracks were more amped with the Ultra, but I was left feeling human and comfy on those legacy tracks that are not so digitized, quantized, nor as aggressive in the highs and lows. Paul Simon and the Eagles, for instance. I think you mostly gain without losing with the Ultra on the music front, but no matter the track, it will play a bit more modern than the Arc. It moves closer to Bose and Sony. Dialogue clarity. The center channel between the Arc and Arc Ultra didn't change in driver composition. 2 woofers and a tweeter. I didn't notice a huge difference in how voices lifted from the rest of the sounds. If I had to keep pointing at the better performer, I might point at the Ultra 55 of 100 times. The Ultra is definitely not worse. I'd say the dialogue difference between the two is made apparent when you start using the dialogue enhancement feature. The Ultra AI dialogue feature is effective yet respectful to the rest of the sound, gently recessing non-dialogue sounds, though it's still noticeable. The legacy Arc dialogue enhancer also works, but it puts a lot more cheese on the overall sound and the dialogue is not as full. The Ultra as a standalone clearly demonstrates itself as a more capable product, maintaining the lovable parts about the Arc while showing off power-ups in bass, 3D audio rendering, dialogue, and high-frequency clarity. While this bar is not perfect, the last 4 years of development has yielded fruits. Sadly, this is not a given in this product category. The ensemble. Adding the 300s and the bass modules is obviously going to add new dimensions and deliver a more fulfilling cinematic experience. Spoiler alert. With the original Arc, I did mention repeatedly in reviews that the Era 300s, being substantial speakers in their own right with their spatial and low-tone capabilities, kind of stole the show. They're the least deferential soundbar surrounds I've encountered. The Arc Ultra is a more rightful leader of the band, bringing more energy, more humph and grit, ultimately more gravity, critically offering a more capable 3D audio front counterpart to the Era 300s in the back. While the spatial effects will not be as coherent as, say, the Bravia Theater Quad with symmetry and the front back, left, right, the Arc Ultra gets you closer than the Arc OG. One very short bit from the sound samples that really caught my attention is a helicopter flyover in the 6 Underground chase scene. I recorded it with the microphone with the big ears so you can hear it more like I heard it.
BMW chasing the sun. Second is a BMW chasing the sun.
With the Ultra, the helicopter blade sounds were thumpier, more detailed, and the movement and corresponding expected volume change was more arced, dynamic, and lifelike. The overhead motion came across far more flat and constrained with the Arc. And the difference was not the Era 300s, nor the new bass units. I chalk it up to the Ultra's tweeters on the sides and top, and the sound motion thing that amps the upper bass frequencies in a way the Arc can't. If you made me guess what the biggest complaint might be about the Arc Ultra setup, it would be that the sound may lean too dark at times. An imbalance, a drowning in riches, may be a nice way to say it. My experience was that this was easily moderated by adjusting EQ and bass level to taste. As an ensemble, music is going to sound good on both systems. With the Ultra, you get a slightly more live, sparkly, thumpy sound. You will get the most out of both of these systems if you play spatial formats. It's not a stereo system. Play formats that embrace the surrounds, giving them a specialized role. The bass units. Maybe I'll get more sophisticated picking out the differences in the future, but I'm not hearing anything particularly differentiating on the sound side yet. You are allowed to mix and match the 4 with the other gens, including the Gen 1, suggesting the 4 is a normal Sonos sub. Here are the curves for an Ultra with a single sub 4 and a single sub Gen 3. Anyway, the Sonos subs I think are high class for a soundbar tier sub. They peak at around 30 Hz and roll off steep from there. They have acceptable responsiveness, are never quite as contoured as I want on the lowest tones, nor are they shake your chest tactile. The sub 4 is steeped in this tradition. Advice: the Ultra is a proper upgrade. If you don't yet possess an Arc, the $100 more Ultra more than pays for itself in sound enhancements. The improved network performance and future-proofing are sweet little extras. It's good to remember you can add to the Arc Ultra at a pace that meets your budget. If you're extremely rich, do whatever you want. You earned it. If you feel guilty spending money and you already have an Arc system, maybe just chill. But since you're not gonna chill, upgrade the Arc to the Ultra and send your Arc to another room, maybe another man's room. He'll give you money. If you really like your Arc and you have Play Ones or Sonos Ones for rear speakers, you'll get a big boost by upgrading to the Era 300s for sure. I'd argue a bigger boost than upgrading from the Arc to Arc Ultra. 2 Era 300s bring a bass presence that surpasses the sound motion woofer. If you're buying a new sub, get the sub 4. Don't upgrade until you're forced. Okay, wrapping this up. Help me reach my 40,000 sub goal before 2025 so I can practice all those new dance moves everyone's talking about. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.